let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody. My name is Deborah Hargrove. I'm the Managing Director of Train PD at TCAL. We're your hosts this morning for this webinar. We have a number of presenters this morning. We're going to start with Dr. Glenda Rose. Our first presenter is Dr. Glenda Rose with Community Action. Glenda has more than 30 years experience in adult education. She is a dog mom to 4 special needs dogs, and I've met all of them except for Millie, who you'll see a picture of shortly. But Glenda's been in adult ed for a very long time, and I welcome her and will give her the ball now to do her part of the presentation. Welcome, Glenda.
Thank you, Deb. Good morning. And you have met Millie, but she was just a baby when you met her.
Oh, I forgot.
To the office with us, right?
Yep.
There we go. So this morning, I've been working with a group of teachers. I'm the area coordinator for 2.5 counties for Community Action. So I have a lot of teachers, a lot of classes, and they're all going to online, and none of them have ever taught online. So if that's your situation, you're in good company. And what I want to do in this part of the presentation is talk about some basics. If you really don't have a lot of experience and you're nervous about getting online with students, especially in a live online class like this webinar here. So I'm going to talk about a couple of topics. You got to decide how and where is your class going to take place. What do you need to get you and the students prepared for the transition? What tools do you have available for communicating with students? How do you plan for live online classes? And how do you keep students engaged between live classes? So I think the most important thing we can all do right now is breathe. Hidden yoga does wonders for your mood. So exhale, inhale, inhale, exhale. And just remember that we have to, just as we're maybe getting used to this, our students are getting used to this. So we want to start very slowly and with minimal disruption. We want to mimic in the online class as much as possible what we do in our regular class. So that said, I may show a whole bunch of things that are new to you, but you're going to just focus on 1 or 2 new skills or tools at a time. Get to where you're comfortable with those, and then you can breathe and add some more. That's my most important advice for everybody who's new to teaching online today. So the question of where are you going to meet? There's a couple of ways to do an online class. We're using WebEx. I use Zoom with my class, and you have Laura with Zoomies over there coming in. You're going to hear more about Zoom and WebEx from the presenters that follow, so I'm not going to stay on that too long. There's also others like Google Hangouts and BlueJeans, Adobe Connect. Some of them are free and some of them aren't. So deciding on which one as an individual or as an organization is going to depend on what exactly you want to do and how much money you want to pay or not pay. When we think about online classes, we typically think about classes like this with video or without video, but with audio streaming. But it's not the only way to do a live online class that counts for direct contact hours with TWC. If you have a live class on WhatsApp, for example, where the students and the teacher are chatting back and forth, sharing files, looking at different things. I don't know, all of my classes have WhatsApp groups, and you can do a lot of things, especially with ESL, with WhatsApp. So I think that you can look at what your students have. A lot of them, especially your ESL students, will already have WhatsApp available. And that may be something to start with. It's free, it's encrypted end to end, so it's FERPA compliant. And you can basically run an hour-long class there without any difficulties. I know that because one time I forgot I was supposed to be teaching a class and I was on an airplane. So I taught the class from the airplane on WhatsApp, and it worked perfectly fine. I've also taught classes or professional development on Twitter, and I've been teaching classes on Facebook for years and years. So there's different ways to do it. You just have to think about all the tools. Facebook now, you even have Facebook Live, which makes it even easier. But I started long before they had that available, and everything was text-based. You just go slow. You have questions and answers. Does require that you type a little more quickly. If you're doing a lot of responding to students, you do have to have someone who can probably type at least 50 words a minute to be able to keep up. Yeah, and they, thank you, they do have an workplace app with other kinds of things where you can send files. And if you have a group, and I've always used the group for Facebook, if you have a group, you can save files and you can actually have a library and things like that. And you can still do the messaging and everything. So the first thing, before you think about students, you have to think about yourself. And if you're a coordinator like me, you need to think about what your teachers can do and what they have. So what equipment do you have? What physical equipment do you have? And what do you need? I have found it very difficult to actually teach classes on phones or tablets. I think you need actually to have a desktop Mac, something that you can have more power and more control. You can do more things. Can you do it from a phone? Yes, I've done it from the phone. It's just not as flexible. For the teacher, I think you need a laptop of some sort. So you need to find out from your teachers what they have at home. One of the problems I have found, students can connect by their phone to the different things, but my teachers, some of them, because we're in a rural county, they are out where they don't have any internet connectivity. They use their phones for hotspots, but their phones connections are not very stable, and they can't get the free Wi-Fi and stuff that everybody's sharing right now because they're just too far out in the woods. So I have to think about, how do I accommodate those teachers, or how am I going to keep them employed while, you know, the other teachers are learning how to use all the content. So a lot of times I'll have them help with lesson planning, content development, and have the ones that have the technology available to actually facilitate the class. There are an abundance right now of tutorials on everything you can imagine, and especially whatever platform you choose to teach on. Most of them right now specifically have tutorials for educators how to use those platforms. Zoom has some wonderful, especially for educators, tutorials. Google Hangouts has some for teachers as well. And I think it's important to meet with your teachers. I've met with my teachers at least 3 times, getting them used to Zoom and the controls and letting them be host and play around. And this morning, my probably weakest technology challenged teacher, very excellent teacher, just not technology strong, is doing his first Zoom meeting. And I'm supposed to be hosting because I double booked myself. So I've been back and forth watching him, and he's doing fine. He's very nervous. He's let his students know that he's nervous, but they are doing fractions in Zoom, and they are doing fine. It's important to do the videos, but I think it's also very important to have hands-on practice. I know most of my teachers have also opened a Zoom room with their friends and practiced so that they could get used to the different tools available. So you have to also identify how you're going to practice before you bring students into the room. It's really important to be at least somewhat comfortable with the platform so that you're not fumbling around in front of the students as little as possible. It's okay for them to learn that this is a learning curve for you too, and it's okay. And possibly you could have students who could host. They are more comfortable with it than you are. So let's talk about the students. One of the most important things we need to know is, what do the students have available? Do they have internet connectivity? If they have internet connectivity, is it through a service provider in their house, or are they only using their phone? Do they know how to use their phone as a hotspot? Does their internet service provider, their mobile provider, allow them to use their phone as a hotspot? Most of them, by the way, if they are on limited data plans, for example, on a limited data plan, those are being waived right now. So you can use, if you have hotspot capability, you can use your phone as a hotspot without going into the overage charges. If you didn't gather this information earlier in the year, how are you going to find out that information? I know one of the other coordinators is sending out a Google form to the students to find out what technology they have, what internet capability they have, what their living situation is going to be like. Are they going to be able to join class, or do they have 15 kids running around that's going to make it impossible? So it's important to get in contact with your students however you want to do that. Like I said, in my area, all but like 2 of my teachers have WhatsApp groups, and so we were able to contact just about all 400 students by WhatsApp and get it knocked out at one time. Also think there may be an idea that just because someone has a smartphone that they really know how to use them, and that is just not true. They don't know how to do things like, some of my students needed to download the Zoom app and it would not let them download the Zoom app because they were not on Wi-Fi. That's a setting in your phone. You have to set it to allow it to download on metered connections. And so, you know, those are kinds of things that someone in your organization may need to help the students with, to know how to use their phones to download the apps, to connect to the internet, how to go to different screens if you have multiple applications open at the same time, those kinds of things. And then also, you want that first experience to be good. So teachers need to have a lesson plan, they need to be prepared. You want to make sure that the students know what to expect and how to get there. I made a little error in judgment. I put all of our links on our web page, but some of my ESL students just clicked on the first link, which happened to be the GED class. So I'm having to redirect some students out of the GED class into the ESL class for this morning. So trying to negotiate those things ahead of time so that this don't have a lot of bumps if you can avoid it. And I've told the teachers and the students, this is going to be a little bumpy for a couple of weeks until everybody gets used to it, but it will level out. And maybe by then we'll be back in schools, but who knows? So for the time being, we're just going to be patient with one another and let things go. Yeah, and I saw the question about, you know, the free Zoom doesn't have reporting, but it does allow you to save the chat. So what we've told our students to do, and I actually have a Pro, but what we've told them to do anyway, is to put their name in when they come into the room, and then to put by when they leave the room. And then when I save the chat, I've got the timestamp when that student was in the room. So you don't necessarily need the paid version to get compliance with the signing in and signing out and having the timestamps.
And the other thing I wanted to mention that I failed to mention, I think, at the beginning is these are only, you know, each person here is doing a 30-minute presentation. They're taking their presentations and expanding them into a deeper dive, hour-and-a-half presentation.
No, that's fine. And so I'm not going to go too much into those questions, because if you attend the rest of this webinar today, the webinars on Zoom and WebEx specifically later, you're going to get a lot of those questions answered. I will say that if I'm on a webinar, whether it's Zoom or WebEx or Hangouts, I always have a backup means of communication, usually on my phone. So I teach an international class. This is an adult education class. It's just some ESL students that I picked up over the years. And they're in about 8 or 10 different countries. But if something happens in our Zoom meeting, we're all on WhatsApp also. So we can all communicate if something happens in the room, if their screen freezes, if they've lost audio and they can't get me in Zoom, they're able to communicate with me on an alternative method. I think that's important for the success, real success of an online class, because things happen. Technology is not perfect, and devices aren't perfect, and they do crazy things. How do you get the links to the students? So I created a bit.ly link. It's a page that's not on our navigation page to try to avoid other people getting into it. So that's what we sent out to everybody. And my idea was that they would find the class that was appropriate to them and click into it. Some of the ESL students, even if I gave it the instructions in their native language, they kind of missed that piece. But I think it'll get better. And if you've already used QR codes in your classroom, I use QR codes a lot, then that's even easier. You can send them the QR code and they can all get to it. Ways to shorten those URLs, like this one says CAI, which is Community Action Inc., which they know that. 2020 Learn, that is a way to do it. Remind is another good one. Ashley Winkle loves Remind. So Remind's another one. I just use WhatsApp because the students usually already have it on their phone.
I just want to confirm with everyone, and Lori Slayton is on this call. Someone was concerned about Zoom, and we're going to go into Zoom here in just a minute, but because it doesn't have reporting, they're afraid that there's going to be an issue with documenting for direct hours. But
yeah, I answered that you know, you just have them sign in and chat, put their name in chat when they walk in the room and say bye when they leave.
Exactly.
The chat has the timestamps.
And TWC has accepted that now for,
right.
for this current time. Lori?
Yeah, absolutely. We will accept, you know, being fairly lenient with what we're going through, what you all are going through, and what we'll accept for documentation. If you can get us a screenshot, verbal roll call that you document and sign off on, we are expecting that your signature verifies their attendance, and so we're really good with that. We appreciate all the work you're doing.
Great. Thank you, Lori. Back to you, Glenda.
Okay, so I do think it's important to make those URLs that are very long a lot of times into something that they can recognize. If you set up recurring meetings, then you can use the same meeting code every time, and then they don't have to worry about trying to find the meeting code. Verbal roll call is enough. Okay. Now let's talk about planning the lesson, and this is where I'm not going to spend a lot of time today. This is what I'll be working on tomorrow. When you are planning an online lesson, you have to think about 4 things. What are the students going to see on the screen? What are the students going to hear? How are they going to hear it? For example, if you're sharing a video or audio clip, does the platform you use allow you to send that file through the internet or share your computer sounds to the students? Or are you going to have to do something wonky, like put your microphone around so that they're hearing it from your speakers? That can get really kind of ugly. So all of those, I think, are things you need to think about for the sound. And then you also have to think about kinesthetic learners. So you can't just have them sit there like you kind of doing, although a lot of people are putting things in chat. So you can't just have them sit there for an hour and listen to you drone on and on and on, or even listen to each other. There has to be something that they interact with in the lesson, just like you would do in a regular class. They're going to have to touch something, type something, respond in some way that's using their kinesthetic. And if you have a long class, like one of my classes is 3 hours, you need to remind them about every 45 to 50 minutes, stand up, stretch, take a break, get your eyes off of the screen, you know, whatever you need to do, but you need to get them away from the computer and standing up and getting blood flow again.
Glenda?
Yes.
We have, speaking of interaction, we've got one of our Zoomies, Miguel Salinas, is asking a question. Can Remind serve as a means to teach our students just like we could use WhatsApp or a Facebook group?
I believe so. I haven't used Remind in a while. It did not used to allow two-way communication, but I believe it does now. So if you can show that you have live interaction with students over a confined period of time, that would still be considered direct hours. It cannot be that you talk to them today at 3 and they respond at 5. It has to be within a certain amount of time.
Thank you.
The last thing that I think people forget about is with all this social distancing, we don't want it to become social isolation. And students need to have social interaction in the classroom the same way they do in the face-to-face classroom. We know from the research on adult education on persistence that that social community building part of the class is what keeps students involved. I will tell you that that international class that I've been teaching for a couple of years, we all met in Paris a couple of years ago. We had not met physically before because they had built such a strong community that they really wanted to get to see each other face to face. So you need to make sure that there is time built in for community building. If it's the kind of questions you're asking or just doing a checking in at the beginning, how's everybody doing, but making sure that you have that social aspect built into your lesson plan.
RG Lozano is just saying, I use it a lot. My students respond right away, and I'm able to have them join Google Classroom.
If anything you can do in conjunction with another tool like a learning management system, and Google says that Classroom's not a learning management system. You know, you can call a cat a dog. It's still now. So basically, anything you can use to supplement what you're doing in the online, just like you can give homework in face-to-face. I think that's very helpful. Google Classroom is an excellent one. There's a lot of others that we can talk about tomorrow. The other thing, and that kind of ties into this, how will you keep learning going after class? So again, my students are all on WhatsApp. This is my international class. I just thought this was funny.
That's hilarious.
Dasha Sandra, Dasha's in Slovakia. She's from she's from Czech, but she lives in Slovakia. Sandra is in the northern part of France, and Margarita is in Colombia. And so this is their conversation a couple of days ago. And Margarita put
that picture of the apocalypse.
Yeah. She put that.
So folks are asking to read it a little out loud. It's a little blurry. The
Yeah, I
apocalypse.
was getting ready to. Okay. All right. So the one that's apocalypse says, what I expected, the black is zombies. We all expected the zombie apocalypse. And we expected anarchy in the red. So that was the one. What we actually got in the yellow was no toilet paper and blue home office. So I thought that was very, very sweet. So they have always shared the craziest thing. There's a picture of somebody with 50 euro bills on the toilet paper roll that they sent. They have one where they have stacks of toilet paper like a throne around a toilet, and it basically says Game of Thrones, coronavirus style. Anyway, they're hilarious people. So in all of my classes, they interact like this between classes, and it's very good for the students because they get very connected to one another. And that way they have somebody to talk with. So you want to make sure that they have some method of communicating with each other outside of class. But where you can pop in, if they want you to help with, they sometimes ask me questions about, is this sentence correct, or how can I fix this? And that's all good too. Margarita, my awesome assistant, she is always on WhatsApp trying to help them if they're having technical issues or personal issues. She is just 100% on board all the time. So I really strongly suggest having some sort of mechanism where the students can stay in touch with each other. If you're using a learning management system, it can be a discussion board, an open-ended discussion board, whatever you choose to use. Okay, I'm almost done. So I'm coming back to the beginning here. The most important thing to do is decide what are the most important skills to start off with. You want to start with one or two skills that you absolutely have to have. So basic skills for running a webinar are going to be, do you know how to set it up ahead of time, what the parameters are? For example, on Zoom, you have to allow breakout rooms if you're going to use them. You have to allow polling if you're going to use it. So do you know how to set it up so that students' videos don't automatically come on? Set it up ahead of time. Once you're in the room, you have to know how to open the room. You have to know how to find your participant list, your chat list. You have to know how to share screens. So the new teacher, the teacher that's new to online today, the only skill I was asking him to learn today was how to share his screen. I'm not asking him to learn how to annotate on the screen. I'm not asking him to do anything else but learn to bring something up on your computer and share it with your students. That is all we are trying to get accomplished today. So that's very slow. And I'm actually set up the rooms for them. I actually am hosting. Of course, I'm in here right now, but I'll go back to him in just a minute. And then I've got to say, guys, just laugh at yourself, just laugh with your students, laugh with your teachers as we're bumbling through here, and just take it easy. This is my blind deaf dog, Millie. Millie, as you can see, she loves to play fetch. I have a blind, deaf, from birth dog that loves to play fetch. So if a blind, deaf dog can be this happy playing fetch, we should be able to get through learning how to use online tools to help our students. So that's what I want you to keep in mind. We can all do this. We're going to smile. We're going to keep going. And that's all I have to say unless you have questions for me.
I do. We do. We have some comments from our Zoomies. Mr. Sines in El Paso says, I've already done my third class with Zoom this week. I sent their discussion topic ahead of time, and they were ready for class. We had great interaction, and they were engaged for an hour and a half. That's great, Mike.
Okay, and I do have to jump in and tell those people who may be new that are thinking, oh my gosh, that Mike is very experienced distance learning educator. He is an excellent person to talk to if you have questions. But somebody who's got that kind of experience is going to do more engaging things than somebody who's just getting started.
And speaking of that, Glenda, on the TCAL website, we do have that list of those volunteers who have volunteered to help all of you with your distance learning. If you have questions on the curriculum you're using, you can go to the TCAL webpage. If one of my team members will put our web address in the chat pod, we have a table of people who have selfishly volunteered to help you through that. We have another question or a comment from Hortensia Leal. I've been using Zoom, and it has awesome features. I began using it with my ESL class on Monday, and I'll use it again today. I can project things and use a whiteboard. I love it, and my students did too. This is great.
Yeah, and one of the things I love about teaching from home when the dogs aren't barking, which is something you have to think about. If you are comfortable with those things, Hortensia, if you're comfortable with sharing your screen and using the whiteboard and the annotation tools, something else you might want to think about is investing in a small document camera, because then you can actually write like you would write on a board, and you can show books and things that are on your desk. But we'll talk about that kind of stuff tomorrow.
And then Sarah says, I figured out Google Hangouts does not let you share your screen if you're using Chrome. And yeah, we've got some experiences we're going to share here just a bit about Google Hangouts ourselves. So just keep posted for that. Thank you, Glenda, very much. Now, let's move into our folks who are going to talk to us for about 30 minutes on Zoom. Our friends at Northside ISD are very active with Zoom and very skilled. And so we've got 3 people who are joining us this morning, Sasha, Karen, and Milena. And all 3 of them are going to do a slide each. They use Zoom for different things. As you can see, Sasha is the DL lead. It does a lot of work in distance learning, and so much so that I didn't have time to put all the bullets in there for you, Sasha, sorry. Karen Young is a DL coach. She's 5 months in adult ed. Boy, you were thrown into the pot, but born to be here. Yet we're not in this for the money, that's for sure, Karen. So we're happy that you're with us. 7 years in secondary ed and celebrating 1 year of marriage this month. Congratulations. And then Milena, in her presentation, she's got 16 years in adult education. She also is a teacher and distance learning coach and is the Adult Ed Alamo Consortium 2019 Teacher of the Year. So we appreciate you joining us, ladies. And I think we're going to start off with Sasha. Sasha, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And thank you, Glenda. It was like a perfect segue. We came right in. So we're going to address some of the questions that you had, and we're going to look at this from 3 aspects. So I'm the coordinator for adult ed for Northside Independent School District, and we have been using a blended learning program since last year. So we just kind of ran with this year using Zoom through this whole situation with the coronavirus. It blended really well. Our teachers are taking really well to it. One of the things that I really like about it is that it allows us as administrators, myself and our lead team, to be part of any class. So part of what we're doing is through this, all of the teachers fill out a Google form that let me know what their Zoom links are and the days and times that they're giving their students. And at that point, I can click any of the Zoom links and go in there and view the class. Especially right now, we have a lot of students who have questions and apprehensions about what's going to happen. So that's something they like to hear it from us as leadership sometimes. So we're able to go in there and answer those questions. And I'll just mirror what Glenda said. We use the chat feature as well. So when the students come in, they put their name in the chat so that when we get a copy of that chat, we have the timestamp. And same thing when they leave, they say goodbye. We also have, what we do is I have an IA who will go into the Zoom classroom and take a verbal attendance as well. Usually about 15 to 20 minutes into the class, an instructional aide, who has access. They will go in with the sign-in sheet that they have a printed copy of at home, and they'll just call out the names. John, are you here? Sean, are you here? And it's kind of a triple check. So they will write on the sign-in sheet that it was verified by an employee through verbal. The free one even does allow for recording, but it's only recording onto the local device. So you do have to have a computer or a laptop, and it will save it onto the hard drive. And so you have the option of sending it out to students. Now, if a student does rewatch the class, it doesn't count as direct hours. I just want to make sure you know that. But we do that as well. We record all the classes, and then we save them in a Google Drive for students to watch later, for us to watch later, so that it helps. It's kind of a triple check of all of our data and students signing in. Link can be used, we can use several communications. So the communication tools that Glenda talked about, Remind, Google Classroom, and or email, you can send the Zoom link that way. So we've had a lot of students using, or a lot of teachers using several different things. Remind is kind of our go-to. And I'm glad Milena is going to talk about her part of Zoom as how she uses it for a teacher. She uses Remind all the time, and I think all the time is an understatement. So that is, I'm glad that she's able to do that. So all of our teachers will send out the Zoom link to their students about 15 minutes before the class starts, only because what we found is if we send it too soon, the student just will click on the link way ahead of time. So that's just what we have found.
Sasha?
Yes.
If I can interrupt for just a second, we've got a couple of comments.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, someone asked how long is each meeting for the free version, and someone replied, it's unlimited right now.
Right now, that's correct.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that. And then Brenda, one of our Zoomies, is sharing, this is all so new to me, and she's feeling a bit overwhelmed.
Right.
All I can share about that, Brenda, is I think we're all experiencing that for the moment. You're not alone. So that's why we're going to have these folks do an hour-and-a-half session so they can take extra time to work with, have the teachers get in there and they can help you and work through it. They're going to show you a little bit more information in those 1.5-hour sessions tomorrow. And next week. So just sit tight on that, and please don't feel too overwhelmed. We're going to help you any way we can. There was a question. You said if a student rewatches it, it doesn't count towards direct hours, but if I have a student watch a recorded lesson, would that count towards direct hours?
As far as I understand, no. It has to be a live situation. So that's why WhatsApp will work as direct hours. Those kind of, you have to have a one-on-one or a live session with the student for it to count as direct. It has to be some sort of quote-unquote face-to-face, even if it's online. And I want to with that 40 minutes, and just so you know, I had a teacher who told me the exact same thing yesterday, that they stopped it at 40 minutes, and that was the old limit, but I think that they're a little overwhelmed right now because a lot of the schools are using them as well. So I would just keep using it, or send them an email through their contact us and let them know. I know that when I had to contact them on Monday, they were real quick about at least getting back to me that they had opened a ticket about some things that I had asked about. And then, so they were, through the email, they responded relatively quickly. Somebody asked about if they would qualify for, if they were a nonprofit. All you submit the form, the email, that what you're doing, and it's not my company, but I would say, why not? At this point, we're all trying to get just some teaching done. So I would say,
right.
Forget it. It wouldn't hurt.
Oh, right. So there's a lot of folks who are really feeling a little overwhelmed right now.
Sure.
So the basic way for them to get onto Zoom is just to go on and create an educator account.
We use Zoom. We've kind of always used Zoom throughout the year for different trainings and meetings for our teachers, only because it allowed us to do the recording. And as you all know, in adult ed, all of my teachers can't be there at a certain time. The majority of them have a full-time job. So if I do a meeting or training at 3, we usually can't have 100% attendance. So what we do is we use Zoom so that they can get on either at work or at home and or watch the recording later. So with that, I'm going to bring on Karen. She's been doing a lot of that. And then after that, we'll have Milena, and she is a DL coach as well. And the distance learning coach is a new position for us. We just started that this year, and I think it was just timely because now they're overwhelmed and bombarded with tons of stuff, with all sorts of trainings and talking to students, but they can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know they love it.
Now, there are a lot of questions about these recordings, and if they watch a recording, is it proxy hours or direct hours? Lori, if you're still on, you know, we do have some frequently asked questions that are on the front of the TCAL webpage, and TWC is the one who is handling all of those. How would you like us to address that, Lori? Just send them to the frequently asked questions?
Yeah, well, that's always a really good reference, and it'll be updated again later today, but proxy hours are only used for distance learning, which is the approved curriculum, right? It's not done at the same time like classes, and it's approved curriculum. The link to the approved curriculum is also on the TCAL website. Direct hours are just like class. You're replicating your class. You're just doing it on like a platform or through some other method of contact, but it's happening at the same time, just like in class. So proxy hours, again, are tied to specific approved curriculum, and direct hours are when you're having class time with your students. You're just not doing it face-to-face. Does that help?
Thank you. I think so, for now at least.
Right. I'm also working on a cheat sheet for the difference between remote learning and distance learning. So I hope to have that posted today or tomorrow, but I'm working on that as well. The FAQ is a great source for a lot of these questions.
Yep.
And just remember that our hour-and-a-half session that's going to happen on Thursday and next week, we're going to share our screens with you, all three of us, myself, Milena, and Karen, to show you how we do these things. So right now we're just kind of telling you what we do. We will go into detail on how we do the chat, how we get copies of the videos, how we get copies of the chat, and the timestamps so that you can see it. I know that this can seem overwhelming because we're just kind of going through bullet points, but we definitely will show you how to get all that information so that it's not so overwhelming. And I'll just tell you one thing that I keep telling my teachers is, are we going to make mistakes? Absolutely. But in a week, we'll all be pros.
Yep. All right, Karen, you want to take over for this slide, please? Karen Young.
Hi, everyone. I am so honored to be here today. I want to say that first. Being 5 months into adult education, it has been a learning experience, but it has been a complete joy. So I'm super excited to be here today. As far as Zoom because I am a distant learning coach, as far as Zoom for coaches, it has allowed me the ability, as well as Milena, because she is a coach as well, the ability to build strong relationships with the teachers of the department. Being here for a short amount of time and having a full-time job with Northside ISD as well, I mainly service our teachers that work in the evenings and on Saturdays. So when we went completely remote, some of the teachers I had not met because they worked in the afternoons. But I will say that meeting with them on Zoom has allowed a strong relationships to be built, even if we're not technically face-to-face. Video conferencing, if you just continue to practice it with your team, I promise you it just gets easier and you become more comfortable, and it allows those strong relationships to be built. Another thing is that I have delivered, as of last week, I had 11 virtual meetings, and I held about 5 different professional developments for our team, for our department. And I love Zoom because it was able to keep the environment calm and controlled and organized. And so tomorrow, when we go more in depth in that hour-and-a-half training, we will definitely show you all how to mute your participants as they arrive or when you're ready to get going. You can also unmute them all at the same time as well. To keep it a controlled environment, you can ask your participants, your students, to raise their hand if they have a question, and use the chat features. One of my favorite chat features is that you're able to provide links in the chat to where if you're sharing your screen with your students and they can't find the link and you want them to follow along with you, you just paste that link into the chat and they're able to access it right then and there. If you are using a Google document, you can also share a file on the chat, which is really neat as well. As far as practicing delivery, this has been, Melina and I this has taken a lot of our time, but we truly enjoy it. Our teachers, many of them have been teachers before. We even have some administrators, some old principals in our department, and they are unfamiliar with Zoom. And so they asked Melina and I to go in to Zoom with them to practice the delivery of the remote learning that they'll be doing. And that has also helped build the relationships. But just practicing with the teammate on your team, it has really lifted that overwhelming feeling, because it's just you and your partner working through it together. What we do when I practice with some of the teachers is we practice sharing our screen back and forth. And so if they want to show me something, I'll say, okay, share your screen with me. It's the green button at the bottom, share your screen, and then okay, stop sharing your screen, and then I'll take over and share with them my screen. So it's just practicing. Another thing is the annotate option. So if they're working, let's say, with an article, some of the EFL teachers, I will suggest for them to, as they're going through it, to annotate. That's another option. And everybody can see that annotate that is participating in your class. Another really cool feature is the remote control access. I use it when I'm meeting with my teachers, as far as I give them the ability to take over my screen. So let's say we're having trouble getting to the same website, but I want them to go through the steps on this website. I would allow remote control access, and they can then take over my screen. So that's really awesome too. And then, and I think I said this before, but sending the quick links, articles, and more via chat.
Karen, it looks like Leslie has a question. Are the students sharing the annotating of articles through video?
You would share the annotating such as like an article, like you would show the article, and then you have annotating options as you go. But we can definitely you can see that. I know it's like easier said than done. So in the training tomorrow, we can show you exactly how that looks. And I think I saw a question about how do you give remote control access. We will talk about that. Because if I explain it here, you're going to be lost.
Right.
It's better to practice it.
Okay. Well, let's move on. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Let's move on now, and we're going to have Melina, who is also a DL teacher and a coach, have her talk about how Zoom can be used for teachers. Melina, take it away.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Deb. My name is Milena Garcia, and I'm going to talk to you about how Zoom is a very helpful tool when you're teaching online. Okay, so first of all, I teach 3 intermediate class right now, and I'm also a DL coach. So I have been so busy, very busy this week. And I started teaching online like 2 weeks ago using Zoom, and it has been fantastic, wonderful. So I know that many of the people that are here are new when you teach online, and but I know that you have a lot of expectations. I know you have a lot of questions, but let me tell you that when you use Zoom, you are going to feel happy. You are going to be excited to have the contact with your students and to give them the opportunity to express how they feel and how this situation has changed their lives. So I am going to tell you that Zoom has helped me a lot to continue building my relationship with my students. I think I have a strong relationship with them. So I teach using Zoom like about for 3 hours. I have a 3-hour class on Zoom. They don't want to leave. They want to stay with me. They want to continue playing. They want to continue singing songs. So teaching online is fun. That's why that is something I want to tell you. It's very fun to teach. It's very fun to know and to meet their families and their children. They are excited to show me their families, to introduce their families to me. So I'm very excited to see them, and then I can see the family around the table doing homework too. So it's not about our students, it's about their families too. So I'm going to tell you that, well, tomorrow I'm going to tell you more detail about that, but I have used Zoom to teach from Burlington English. That's the platform that we use in our program. And I am able to share the grammar worksheets and the in-class lesson activities, and we read books, and we learn about grammar, all of these using Burlington English. My students are able to play games like quizzes, like Kahoot, like Quizlet, and they can see the screen, they can see their scores, we can review the questions, sharing my screen. Also, my students are able to use different applications. So I have used Padlet for writing, Flipgrid for speaking, Actively Learn for reading, and they are really easy applications that Karen and I have found, and we have been teaching, training our teachers also to use that. And my students enjoy singing songs, so we have songs through YouTube. So what I do is I share the lyrics through Remind, and then I play the video from YouTube, and they can sing and learn new vocabulary and new pronunciation, and they love that activity. Also, students are able to watch videos, so I share my screen and they watch video, grammar videos, funny English videos. And I can share online quizzes also, and they take the quizzes, and then I can see the results. And then my favorite part, like I mentioned before, is voluntarily. They open up the camera and they say, "Teacher, look, she's my daughter, he's my husband, she's doing homework," and I am virtually in their houses. So I don't know, I know that you don't know, but I was a student in this program 17 years ago now. And I know how important and how critical it is to have a relationship with your teacher when you are away from your family and when you are away from all the things that you live in your country. So I think that this is very important moment that you have, opportunity that you have to support your students, not only in the learning process, but in their lives, and to tell them that everything is going to be fine soon. Okay, so I think that learning is important, teaching is important, but mostly it is to tell your students that you are here, that you are available to support them and that you are willing to at least listen to them. So that's what I have to say, and then I'm gonna leave it like this, like a good movie, and then tomorrow you are going to see the rest. Thank you.
Thank you, Malena. What a beautiful story. I appreciate you sharing that with us. And you have lots of kudos coming to you.
Hey, Deb, can I add something to that?
Absolutely.
One of the things I'm noticing people are asking, they have questions on paper. How do they use paper that, you know, maybe they have worksheets or different things. There are several different applications. CamScanner is one that I have used. I digitally, and if you have an iPhone, I'm sure it has the same kind of on an Android, is you take a picture of it and it scans it, and then you can send it via Remind. Just in our program, the teachers kind of call me the paper Nazi, and we have gotten to the point that they have learned to really use these applications. One of the things Milena does a lot, and if you can tell she's really excited about her class, you should. I love walking into her class. There have been countless times where I've walked in and they're having a dance party, and she has dance parties now online. She was showing this to me. It was hilarious. But
I love that.
Yeah, so it gets these students really engaged. So one of the things that she uses is the scan option with a Remind app. So she takes the scanner, she scans the picture, and then you send it via Remind. And I know that there are other applications that you can use to do those kind of things. And one that we have really liked using is Actively Learn. We just learned about that application. Karen found it. And I know other people have heard about it to use newspaper articles. That really has made awesome, just changes. So I love Actively Learn. So if you once you get used to it, and I want to say that if you're starting off brand new to digital or virtual classrooms, please understand that we're just giving you tools for your tool belt. If all you can grab right now is Zoom, more power to you. We don't expect you to use all these other things all of a sudden. That's exactly what I've been telling my staff is, hey, all you got to do is get on there, let them see your face. And Actively Learn is an application website. I'm sure we'll probably have to do some training on that because we talked about it a lot.
Yep.
But it's fantastic. It is a fantastic tool. And I know we were going to talk about it at the Tech Symposium, not us specifically, but I know there was one on there, but we'll get that after the postponement. So I just want to say that Zoom has really changed that part of our classrooms, but it's in a positive manner and just one step at a time.
Thank you, Sasha. And I'm going to move on to Ashley Winkle and Tiffany Lee, and they're going to tell you about a recent experience they had with Google Hangouts. Ashley, take it away. This is Ashley Winkle and her doggie. Ashley works for the Literacy Council of Tyler. She is currently the PD coordinator in distance learning coach. She is part of the tech integration coaching project that we have at TCAL, and she's a Journeyman 1 technology coach. She's also a trainer and an HSE teacher. And along with her, we have Tiffany Lee, who works at the Region 9 ESC. Tiffany is a distance learning lead instructor as well as a PD coordinator. She's also one of our tech integration coach gurus. She's an apprentice too. She's into curriculum development and she's also a trainer. So thank you both for presenting with us this morning. And I'll turn it over to you, Ashley.
Basically, Tiffany and I both had some experience with Google Hangouts. We're both very much Google girls. We love Google. My experience, though, in the past had never been in an actual remote setting, not with a whole group of students, nothing like that. I mean, I've done Google Hangouts one-on-one, and then I was thinking about this earlier. I've actually done a Google Hangout, and it was combined with a live YouTube that we did online. I did that with a group of people once, and it was a little wonky, but it still worked. So we thought that this would be a great one to do, and we put our research together, and we played around with it. Has all these really cool things. I saw a lot of comments in there about Google Hangouts. just in the chat pod earlier and saw some similar experiences to what I experienced. And but basically, I decided I needed to do this live with my class. I was going to do my first official remote class with my face-to-face group on Monday. And I did everything I could do to prepare for it. So my plan was I wanted to provide students with a sense of familiarity by using tools they would normally use in a class. So I'm laughing at all the Actively Learn comments because that's actually the one tool we are having all of our GED, HSE teachers use. Because if you're not familiar, just a side note, right now they have their free pro version and they're offering all sorts of data and reports, and they have time on task with the students, plus you can engage with the students and things like that. So I wanted to make sure I used tools they were familiar with so that I didn't overwhelm them. So Google Hangouts was the only tool that they had not used with me. So that was going to be the only thing that was going to be new to them, but I really went out of my way to prepare them. So I started preparing them by sending out notifications on Remind. I started sending them out on Sunday. I first wanted to make sure that they were okay, that I get it. I know there's a lot going on, but I still wanted to offer this to them. So I sent out a number of different messages. Then my plan was to use Google Hangouts to connect and engage in discussion with students. So I know somebody said that you can't share your screen on Google Hangouts. You actually can. I did just double check. So my plan was I was going to share my screen, have a discussion, and engage the students, not for very long, maybe 20, 30 minutes, just to see how they're doing, just to kind of talk about the COVID-19 craziness going on, make sure they're okay. And then I was going to link it to Actively Learn lessons that were also talking about the same thing. So the lesson itself was on Google Classroom, not necessary for them to get it on Google Classroom. They can just go to the Actively Learn, but I wanted them to go to the platform they were comfortable with, and Google Classroom they go to every day. You can go to the next one, okay. Those are just, all this is kind of little updates that I gave them, what to expect this week when we try this, and then of course that night I made recommendations for our online class. Just try to kind of get them just to get a little bit comfortable with an uncomfortable situation, which, trust me, it was uncomfortable for me too. And my plan was busted. So part of my plan worked and part of it did not. So I got, of my 15 students, I got 5 to join me. I had 8, but 3 bailed out. I think they panicked. But what I did is I shared a link to my Google Hangouts on Remind. I also shared it on Google Classroom, so they had 2 different platforms they could go to. The link did not work for all students, so the ones it did not work for, I had to turn around and email it to them. Side note, I am talking about Google Hangouts free version only. I do not have G, so if you have G Suite, you may have a different experience. But then what happened is I was using my computer. So my computer completely froze. And at this point, I had 4 attendees. And so I had them take the video off, but had absolutely no luck with that. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't talk to them. They couldn't hear me. They couldn't see me. It was awful. So I switched to my smartphone, and then it worked, but I could barely hear them. So that didn't work. So this is how I responded. I did not panic in any way. I just talked to them, made sure they were okay, had them go ahead and go on to our next activity. They all went ahead and they signed on. They went to Google Classroom. They all just kind of checked in with the times that they got there, said hi to each other, and then they went ahead and they moved on to 2 reading lessons and Actively Learn. The biggest thing was, and then from there we interacted just through video, via group text. We were just using what we were using, basically. I had a couple of them that were still on Remind, a couple of them on group text, but it all worked out because we continued to communicate. I was still able to answer their questions. It wasn't smooth sailing whatsoever. I was able to answer questions. I was able to talk to them and interact with them on Actively Learn. So overall, and then at the end, when I got some feedback from them, they said it didn't really matter because they really learned a lot about the COVID virus by doing the Actively Learn lesson. So it really worked out. The biggest point was, though, that I did not panic or give up, because if I panicked or gave up in front of my students, what do you think they're going to do on their own? So that's like very, very important in my opinion. And the other thing is, if something doesn't work, try to use something else. So use something they're familiar with. We all automatically went to two things. We went to Remind, we went to Text, and we went to Google Classroom, because these are things that we were familiar with. So basically, all I'm saying is I'm not dissuading anybody from using Google Hangouts. I think it could work out great one-on-one. So if you just have, you know, doing a tutoring session or something like that, I think it could work. Or if you have G Suite or even maybe Google Meet, I don't know, I'm not an expert on these things, that might work. But I just kind of thought it was still worth sharing my experience, because something is always going to go wrong. It doesn't matter. Something will go wrong. I mean, you absolutely have to expect it, and I did. But the world doesn't end, and it still worked out in the end.
Yep. And we thought it was important to share that with you. You know, we were on the phone one evening, I think it was Monday night, when Ashley and I were talking, and she said, it's just not going to work. We need to take it out. And I said, no, let's leave it in, because you know what you're doing, and it still happens. And this is just our way of saying, as Ashley said, we're all in this together. It's going to happen. Just have a backup plan. And what do we do as adult educators? We wing it. We'll throw something else out there as an alternative. So don't let that worry you. I mean, just have your backup plan. You'll be ready to go. Here are some comments. Perfect practice for a real workplace scenario. Ashley showed them how to handle a difficult situation, be flexible, and improvise. Yep. And Hillary in our Zoom room says, I think it's important to let them see your mistakes and then you persevere. Lavana says, exactly. Friedja says, just curious, have any of you found that a particular program works best with ESL or GED students? That looks like a question addressed to any of you. Friedja, are you asking about what virtual teaching platform is? Zoom better, or WebEx, or Google Hangouts? Sarah says, okay, that's what she's asking.
Just a comment. So
Sure.
even though I'm familiar, distance learning and technology is my thing, I've never done remote learning before. So this has been as much of a rough time for me and a lot of research and a lot of work and a lot of long hours as it is for everyone else. So I actually do feel your pain. And based on, and I still can definitely say I'm not an expert, but based on everything we've seen and everything else, Zoom seems to be one safe bet. But I don't know, because literally I think in our group only one set of teachers. But I mean, I think that's why we're doing this, and WebEx is next, and I think that could be another really good option as well. But as far as it goes, I think that listening to people like Glenda, she uses Zoom, so she has ESL groups and things like that. So honestly, if you don't just get out there and try it, you're probably not going to know, but I would definitely take the advice and watch these videos coming up, or these WebExes coming up.
Thank you for that. I will share, Lorraine Juarez, one of our Zoomies, wrote in the chat pod in Zoom, I think my phone is listening intently to this. My Google Assistant popped up and was stating everything that Ashley was saying. So that's cute. I like that. Thanks for sharing that, Lorraine. Okay, everybody, let's move on to Anne-Marie Molinari. Anne-Marie is our TCAL PD specialist. She has worked in adult education for over 20 years with a background in teaching adult basic ed, high school equivalency, and distance learning, and she currently holds a master's degree in special education with a concentration in adult literacy instruction. So I'm going to make Anne-Marie the presenter and let her take over.
Good morning, or almost, well, good afternoon, everybody.
Hi, Anne-Marie.
I'm excited to be here with all of you. Thank you so much. Well, you know, this is, again, as I said, this was exciting, but I mean, my goodness, how do we follow all of this talent? I'm not sure. I've learned a lot just in since I've been on the call on the webinar with everybody. So what I want to do right now is just kind of set the stage of what we're going to do, here for about the next 20 minutes or so, 30 minutes. And WebEx, what I'm going to do is we're going to introduce briefly the primary features available inside the free version of the WebEx platform. And I think that's the important part to remember as we talk about WebEx. And when I do the longer sessions later this week, the 90-minute session, I am still going to be focusing what's available in the free version, okay? Because I can tell by all the questions in the chat pod, there's a lot of discussion of what features are available here, what features are available there. We're going to focus on what I know is available for you as soon as you set up your free account. And as a teacher, I think I would want to know that as well. So the good news is that I do have some resources I want to share with you. So I'm going to throw a little technology in here right away. I created a very simple Google Doc for everybody, and I'm going to explain why. And if you have a QR code reader on your phone, you can also just take your phone and take your QR code scanner and scan the screen right now, and if it's sensitive enough, it will pick it up. And on this Google resource sheet, I have given you 5 resources, and it's going to walk you through some things that I think you need. So there's going to be one link is going to be right to where you create your free WebEx account, okay? And Krista Mosier and I can speak for Krista, I think, when I say that it took us about almost 3 days to get our free account, because I think they are overloaded, of course, with all of the teachers across the nation trying to get their free version of WebEx. So hopefully it's improved a little bit. So just a little FYI, if you don't hear right away, give them some time. Then the other resources available for you, or just I'm going to work you through all of the best practice suggestions for holding virtual trainings, troubleshooting, how to connect to audio, how to send a meeting invite. And then depending on what version of WebEx you have, you are going to be able to take advantage of some other features, such as WebEx Teams and using an interactive whiteboard, things like that. But again, those are not available in the free version, but I'm still excited because there's an awful lot that you can do. So let's keep going here, and I'm glad you like the Google Doc. I encourage you to add more things that you find. This is a universal Google Doc, so if you have the link, spread it out and share it with your teachers so that they have it. When we go into the deeper 90-minute session on Friday and then again on Monday, I'm going to work through these in detail. But as the other presenters talked about, I'm going to tell you, and later I'm going to show you, and I'm going to model everything in the deeper sessions. So the first thing you want to think about, and you have available to you in the WebEx environment, is setting up your webinar room. And I liken it to setting up your classroom environment. So I call it setting up the webinar room. And when you set up your webinar room, you are going to have the options to work through some decisions. You're going to have some decisions to make. And some of those decisions are going to be turning on and off your video cameras. And there's pros and there's cons, right, to having the video cameras on. As far as if you have a huge class, as we are right now, a training with 200 people, there's the tendency and, well, not the tendency, there's a good chance that it's going to crash the room because of the bandwidth. But if you have a smaller class, that has 5 students, you may have the option to keep the video camera on. So as Glenda discussed and some of our other presenters discussed, students will enjoy seeing each other. So you want to think through that. You will have the opportunity to have the chat pod open or closed when you're setting up your meeting. And then here's another cool feature that I want to share with you. And in WebEx, students, you can decide if students have the ability to take notes in their own chat pod. And you can have all students take notes if they like, or you can assign a note taker. And then you are able to save those notes and send them out. My colleague Liz Moya took notes for me yesterday when we were practicing so that I could be ready for everybody today. And she took notes, and then she was able to send them to me just as a notepad. So that's an awesome feature. And then as you set up your meeting, you've got participant options. And just like in Zoom, you can mute on entry. So as students enter your room or your classroom, you can mute the students. Critical feature, I think, to just to keep everything quiet. Or again, if it's a smaller class, maybe you want them all, saying hi as they come in. So that is up to you. It's whatever you think is good. Now, there is an option in WebEx to take the anyone can share option off, and that allows you to make sure that students aren't grabbing the annotation tools, drawing all over the webinar screen. And you're going to have that option later on to allow them to do certain things. But again, thinking about, just managing your classroom. And in WebEx, there is something called participant privileges. And participant privileges allow you to think about the the communication channels in the chat pod. And as we see here right now, everybody is listed in the participant pod because it's open. Everybody can see it. And as a teacher, you're going to have the option in WebEx to let everyone chat with everyone, or to the host and the presenter privately, or to each other privately. And I considered this greatly, but my suggestion is to turn off the private chat between students. And one thing to think about is discussing netiquette with your students, your expectations, and how they will present themselves in the chat. So just thinking about that. So your chat pod options are very important. And then there's other participant privileges that we'll go over in the longer sections. All right. So the next thing, we talked about number 1, and setting up the webinar room is going to fall as the responsibility of the host and the presenter. And the next slide, I will talk about that. But then your webinar panel is very important. And your webinar panel is that floating dashboard that is at the bottom of the screen. And I want to show you something very quickly. And I'm going to share my meeting window. And you can see that I have this floating dashboard down here. And we're going to go into what all those buttons do in the longer sessions. But one thing to really pay attention to is this is your control panel as a presenter or as a participant. And there's certain buttons we talked about this morning that you want to have open: the participant pod, the chat pod. And then this red button is critical because you want to tell students never to hit the red button. I always like to stay away from the red button. That will kick you out of the meeting room immediately. And right now, my button for my audio is black. That means that I'm able to talk. If it was red, it would mean that it was on. I mean, not on.
Muted.
Okay. Muted. Thank you, Deb. Okay, so then we've talked about the webinar control panel. Number 3, chat pod capabilities, understanding what you can do with the chat pod and what you can't do with the chat pod. Then hosting and presenting, there is a difference, and we're going to move on to that in a minute, or we're going to move on to that right now. And then a wonderful feature of WebEx, and it's very exciting because I think we think of Zoom and maybe some of these other things as, you know, maybe more exciting, but I'm here to say that WebEx can be just as exciting when you share your screen and you share content.
There is a question from Armando. What are the limits of the WebEx free version in terms of number of participants and time limit?
Very good question, and this came from Armando. Armando, you have 100 participants that can be in your free room, and you can meet for as long as you want and as how often as you want. And one thing I did notice as a teacher is that invite at least someone into the room to practice with you, or create another email account and make yourself a practice student and go in and pretend you're the practice student, because it will log off. It will time you out of a meeting room if you don't have at least one person in it. I've tried to break the free version every way I can, Armando. So 100 participants, meet as often as you want, as many times as you want, as long as you want. You can send your meeting invitations to your students, and you can also record the meeting, and the recording will stay on your own WebEx website, but there is no transcription recording. So we can talk about some things you can do to take attendance in a minute. The teacher will more than likely be the host or the presenter in WebEx, but you may want to think about strategies for team teaching, or if you have a large class, you may want to have one of your colleagues in the room with you so that they can be the host and you can be the presenter. Things to think about as a program as you use WebEx. So the host is responsible for muting audio lines upon entry and during the meeting. Decides who can become the presenter. We call this passing the ball, all right? Now, if you notice in the chat pod right now, there's a little round ball next to my name in the chat pod. If you scroll up, if you see my name, and there's a little ball right there, the WebEx ball. That means I got the ball. I'm the presenter, okay? Now, the host can also expel our participant from the training. You know, we don't like to think that as teachers, but if you have a student or a participant that may be causing a disruption or is disrespectful, you do have the option to expel a participant from the meeting, and you do that by going over to the chat pod and hovering over their name in the chat pod and in the participant pod, and there's an option if you right-click to expel the person. So that is available. The host starts and stops the meeting recording. They end the meeting. And this is a very cool feature I just learned myself. A host can move students to a lobby before the class starts. So if you're working on some things and you just want a little teacher downtime before your class starts, you can welcome everybody and say, guys, I'm going to put you in the lobby for a few minutes, and you right-click on their name in the participant pod, and you can move them into a lobby, and then you can bring them back in when you're ready. All right? I just wish there was music, right, in the lobby, but we don't have that. Anyway, so the presenter, what does the presenter do? The presenter is also available, I mean, has the option to do some things. They controls the video cameras, turning them on and off, manages those communication channels in the chat pod that we talked about. And here comes the exciting part, 1, 2, and 3. They can share their desktop to view content or an application. And when a presenter shares their screen, there is a floating presenter dashboard that comes down with all these cool tools. And these tools allow the teacher to annotate, and annotate meaning there's different options. The annotation tools include highlighting, using the arrow pointer on the screen. So, for instance, let me see here, I can do this. So I've got my thing right here. And this is what Deb did earlier. She used her annotation tool. So as a presenter, I have these tools available to me. So I can show a interactive reading lesson. I can demonstrate solving a math worksheet, and I can do a variety of other things. And we talk a lot about Actively Learn, but I want to encourage all of you to think about the other digital reading lessons that we have available, or digital interactive reading lessons we have available. Common Lit, ReadWorks, Newsela is another one. We'll be talking about these on Friday and Monday. So as a teacher, you can bring these documents into your classroom and interact with them. Now, what else a teacher can do as she's sharing, or he is sharing her desktop, is that you can give controls of your desktop and your mouse to a student. It's called assigning control. And when you do that, they can interact with the content on your screen. And that's when I gave the example of a math worksheet, and they can work the problem out right on the screen where everybody can see it. So I will be going into that much more on Friday, and I have some students ready to go to help me demonstrate what I'm talking about on Friday and Monday. So what I suggest, because the free version of WebEx does not allow you to save the chat pod transcripts. So what I suggest is two things. I would create some type of sign-in sheet for your students that you expect to attend, you know, a paper-based sign-in sheet, and do a verbal roll call. And I believe Sasha talked about that, a verbal roll call for your students, and then you can put the you put the time in and the time out, and then follow it up with Glenda's suggestion for when they come into the chat pod, have them say hello, put the time, and then sign out. And then I would take a picture of the names in the participant pod and staple that to your sign-in sheet, your printed sign-in sheet, and sign it. And I believe Lori Slayton said that would work.
Yes.
And there you have double documentation. You certified that they signed in, you got a verbal roll call, and then you also have their names and the participant too. Okay.
So we had someone's asking question, which one is better, WebEx or Zoom? You know, for students, I think that's a personal decision. But if some of you want to go ahead and voice your opinions, I'm sure they would welcome that. Sasha, Anne-Marie, Glenda, yeah.
I'm going to echo what the other presenter said, and I think that I would practice with both of them and see which one you like. I see an awful lot of questions As far as a practice site for WebEx, I saw that question in there. Is there a practice site for WebEx? Your WebEx room can be your practice room. And if you need somebody to practice with you in a WebEx room, email me, and I'll come in and be your student, and you can practice with me. I humbly say that I would be no problem. We're going to have an advanced session on WebEx on March 27th. From 2 to 3:30. I know that there's a lot of online meeting tools available for you to use as you deliver your virtual learning environments for students. WebEx does offer some great features, even just using the free version. With that being said, I hope you can join me for one of these webinars. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you.
Thank you, Anne Marie. And Jose is asking, so in WebEx, you're saying that we're not able to pull the chat pod report. Is taking a picture of the chat the only way to document? Anne Marie?
Yes, ma'am. In the free version right now, that is the only way to do that. You can keep the recording. You can record your webinar, and I haven't officially seen what that recording looks like, but as far as documentation, yes, the only way is to take a screenshot, or as I recommended, do a verbal roll call, create a sign-in sheet, just like you do for your face-to-face classes. Do a verbal roll call, time in, time out, do a verbal roll call when you start, do a verbal roll call when you end, and then as Glenda suggested, I love this idea, have them say hi in the chat pod with the time in, and then when they say, and then say bye with the time out, so both those would work.
AEL strong. So until we talk to you again, everybody be safe, be healthy, and just take a breath. We're here together. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.